September 13th, the Operations and Safety Committee meeting will now come to order. We are convened as of 5:30 p.m. I'm asking everyone attending this meeting to please mute yourself unless you are recognized to speak. We thank you all for joining us this evening. Please note that the committee meetings of the RTD Board of Directors continue to be held remotely via Zoom. They will be audio and video recorded. The meeting recordings, along with the unofficial minutes of the meetings, will be posted as soon as practicable on the board's website at rtd-denver.com. A live stream of this meeting is also available via RTD's YouTube page. Directors and members of staff, for the sake of the record, if you would like to be acknowledged during tonight's proceedings, please raise your virtual hand and wait for me to call you before proceeding to speak. Staff, if I don't see someone's hand, I would appreciate you letting me know. Directors and staff participating by phone can also raise their virtual hands to indicate that they would like to speak by pressing *9. To toggle your mute setting on the phone, press *6. I will now call the roll for the committee members. I am here. Director Whitmore.
Here.
I see you, but I don't hear you very much, but I'll take that as a yes.
Promise I'm here.
There we go, better. Director Sloan.
Here.
Director Rosenthal.
Present.
Director Rusha did indicate that she would not be joining us this evening. Director Broom.
Present.
Thank you, sir. Director Bouquet, I do not believe is here yet. He will be joining us shortly. For the record, I also note that we have Director Guzman and Director Catlin, and I do not see any other directors. Okay, I will now open public comment to anyone who would like to address the committee regarding any topic published in the meeting agenda for the current and the immediately preceding months. If you wish to speak, please either raise your virtual hand or press *9 on your phone. During this time, the committee will not offer direct comments or responses. If you would like to be contacted regarding your public comment, please email the RTD board office at rtd.board@rtd-denver.com. For the board staff, can you tell me if there are any hands raised for public comment?
We don't have any. Hi, Committee Chair Williams. We don't have any hands raised at present. We did receive one pre-written public comment that was distributed earlier from Greater Denver Transit.
Super. Thank you very much, Mr. Kroll. So,
Committee Chair, there is actually a hand raised. I was incorrect.
Okay, so we will have the first speaker. Please begin your remarks by stating your name. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. Do we know who is waiting to speak?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Tim Lovato. Thank you for recognizing me. I'm a member of the public and I have a question.
Well, in this format, we don't normally deal with questions. You have 3 minutes to make a statement, and I think we could have somebody respond after the fact, but as a rule of thumb in this format, we do not respond immediately to questions. Do you want to try and make a statement that we could get back to you about?
Sure, thank you. And I'll also send an email to be contacted later. Thank you. Well, my statement is I'm reading the safety performance review and the item on packet page 48, identifying defects on the end line. It shows that there are 4 defects in 2022 and also 4 defects in Q1, Q2, 2023. I was curious to know what those are and if those defects are being repaired or what is the status of them. But that's what I'll be listening for. And thank you for the opportunity.
Certainly, sir. Are there any other speakers, Mr. Cole, in the queue?
None that I am aware of.
And we did note that there were emailed comments from Greater Denver Transit Partners. So with no other participants at this time, we will close the public comment period. We have no information or reports from external entities this month that I'm aware of. There is one recommended action on the agenda this month, and that action is for the September 2023 Code of Conduct revisions. I'll read it as stated. For the Board of Directors to adopt revisions to the Customer Code of Conduct. As these 4 changes were both reviewed by staff and circulated to directors in advance of our meeting tonight, I'd like to move these changes forward as a single amendment to the Code of Conduct. Before I go to that, I'd like to acknowledge Director Bouquet has joined us this evening. Do I see any other directors who have come on? No? Okay. So do I have a motion to recommend for the full board's consideration the September 2023 Code of Conduct revisions as a single amendment?
So moved, Director Whitmore.
Second.
Director Whitmore, I see you moving, but I do not hear you.
Let's try again. I so move.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second, Sloan.
Thank you, Director Sloan. Okay. Do we have a presentation on this? I think we've probably all been over it enough, right? Okay. I would ask any directors who have questions or who wish to speak to this issue to raise your virtual hands, and I will call on you in turn. Everybody's good. Okay. Then, having Director Whitmore as the mover, Director Sloan is the second, we will move this item forward to the board meeting of September 26th. Mr. Kroll, are you?
You're going to need to call for some kind of vote.
Oh, yeah. Geez, I forgot about that. We are still operating under a democracy here. Yes, so I will go through the roll and ask for a vote. Director Bouquet, your vote?
Yes.
Director Broom?
Yes.
Director Rosenthal?
Yes.
Director Sloan?
Yes.
Director Whitmore?
Yes.
I am a yes. So we have one absentee vote from the committee. That's Director Rucher. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yes votes, 1 not present. I don't know how you say that. And therefore this item will move on to the board agenda on the 26th of September. Okay, we're good to go on? There are no votes. I counted aye votes. Yes. There are 2 discussion items on the agenda this evening. The first is for the January 2024 service change proposals. Mr. Ford, our Chief Operations Officer, and I see Mr. Carter, our Senior Manager of Service Development, are both with us this evening. Would you like to present some information to this group?
Yes, I would, Madam Chair. Michael Ford, Chief Operations Officer. I want to provide you with an update on the January 2024 service change proposal. As you know, staff brings to you 3 service change proposals over the course of a year's time for discussion and subsequent recommendations, which is in alignment with the collective bargaining agreement known as the CBA with the ATU Local 1001 for frontline operator selection of work. As stated in previous reports, staffing levels continue to be primary challenge in increasing service levels to match those identified in the system optimization plan. Considering the agency's current staffing levels and anticipated attrition, the January 2024 service change recommendations are designed to have minimal impacts to staffing levels and are centered on improving system performance and CBA compliance related to respite time. By way of discussion, the guidelines contained in the strategic plan most directly relate to addressing customer excellence, thus improving on-time performance, maintaining contractual compliance, and adjusting service levels to match ridership demand. Staff is also guided by the board-adopted service change principles. And in your board packet, you will see a breakdown summary of proposed service changes, service improvements, service reductions, as well as seasonal adjustments to account for travel patterns. Public hearings will be conducted September 25th. That's Monday, September 25th at noon, which will be virtual. Also Monday, the 25th at 5:30 p.m., which will happen at 1660 Blake Street in rooms T and D. And finally, Tuesday, September 26th at 12 p.m., which will be virtual. So I'm happy at this time to take on questions, and I would invite our Senior Manager of Service Development to join me, Jesse Carter. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, do we have any questions for our staff members? Mr. Rosenthal, Director Rosenthal, sorry.
That's fine. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Ford and Mr. Carter and your entire team for working on these proposed service changes. In particular, I'd like to just note that for bus 65, I did hear from some folks in the community, particularly retirement building, and so they were concerned about the service to their building. And I really appreciate both your work to try to modify the service, but also a shout out to Mo Sullivan, Larry Butler, Cooper Langdon, and Jack Kroll for joining at the town hall with those residents to try to address their concerns. So thank you to the entire RTD team. I look forward to hearing feedback about the proposed route changes to the 65. And thank you very much for all what you do.
Thank you.
I see, thank you, Mr. Rosa. Director, I don't know what's with me tonight, Director Rosenthal. You can put your hand down now. I see Director Broom's hand was up next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted maybe a little update on how many lines are still being impacted by the pandemic. In other words, have we halfway restored service that we cut as a result of the pandemic, or where are we at?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Please, Mr. Carter.
Okay, as far as a percentage of the SOP, where we're at right now, I would say it's close to about 72% of the SOP, or the systems optimization plan, has been put into place. It's still, we're still quite a bit short of where we want to be with the SOP, but of course, as Mr. Ford had mentioned in his briefing, one of our biggest obstacles at this point in time has a lot to do with operator availability. So as you've seen, we've implemented a number of changes, some of them large, some of them small, but I have to say at this point, it would be 72%, we're at the 72% level.
That gives me a flavor for it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Director Bouquet.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I guess my question would be regarding, I guess somewhat similar. I'm not sure if the impact or connection is there or not, but I know our E and H lines are, I believe, still on 30 minutes of service until of October. I'm assuming that come November, we would be back at 15-minute service.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Right. Director Bouquet, you're correct. If we're looking at the E and the H, we're actually looking at a detour of service. So it's not a change in service in the same way as a service change. So yes, we would expect those services to return to their previous level.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right.
I think I have a leftover hand from Director Broom, and I don't see any other hands. Oh, Director Guzman.
I'm sorry, I just have a quick question on these changes. Some of them say it's a schedule adjustment improved at, or aimed at improving on-time performance, and other ones are very specific to either removing something from service. I just don't know what, I mean, I generally understand what getting them to on-time performance means, but there's no specificity with each of these, and the 52 runs through District C. So I'm just curious, can you maybe enlighten me to what that means in a more general way? And the public may need help understanding that too. Thank you.
Mr.
Madam Chair.
Carter, go ahead.
Okay, actually, that's an excellent question, and one that, normally if we're allowed, we'd like to do a board member or new board member orientation to kind of give you an insight as to some of our lingo. And I have to admit that we do use a lot of jargon, and I apologize for that. However, on-time performance as it pertains to the Route 52, when we look at the overall performance of a route, we'll see that it's falling behind where we'd like to see that the overall performance of the route. However, in certain cases, there are things that we know about, and we know exactly where we're going to actually place time and what the overall cost is going to be. So with the Route 52, as you mentioned, it's a very long route. It does go over about 3 different district areas to tell the truth. So that's one that we know it's not performing, but we can't say exactly where the issue is. However, if I were to give you another example, the team reported to me today that the Route 10, more specifically, we were expecting to see some on-time performance issues in the newer portion where we extended further east. However, we found that the actual change or the need for more time was in the downtown Denver area because of signalization issues. So each one's a fingerprint, and if you have questions, you can feel free to contact us to find out a little bit more about exactly where we think the issues are as far as on-time performance. So we're certainly open for that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Director Sloan.
Yes, since we're moving quickly tonight, I just thought I would share a comment. I was recently in Dublin, and every bus on the front display said, "We're hiring." The newspapers were full of the human resources problem. There were suggestions that they go outside the EU to have bus drivers immigrate. And then the pushback was, well, where are they going to live? We don't have workforce housing for them. So I just thought I'd share that we are not alone in our situation. Thank you. And I have a photo that I shared with the board office if anybody would like to see the "We're hiring" sign on the Dublin bus.
Thank you very much, Director Sloan. I see that on our buses on a regular basis, particularly in downtown. So I can comment that hopefully it'll be effective. Director Bouquet?
I'm going to take another bite at the apple because Director Guzman inspired me, and I thank him for that. But is late all one category? Like, because I feel like 1 minute late versus 15 versus 30 minutes. So part of my ignorance, but I just am curious because I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, on-time performance, we're at 67%. Yikes. But then we got like 32% that are late. Are we counting 1 minute as being late? Because as a writer, I'm like, I can live with that. So what do we count as late?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Mr. Carter.
Okay, so that's an excellent question. And again, something that we definitely go over as far as our new board member orientation. I'm trying to advertise that because I'd like to meet with you all to tell the truth, to kind of go over some of these things. So it's not abnormal in a transit system to identify what is late when it comes down to bus service. So we use what's pretty standard in the industry, 5 minutes late and -1 or 1 minute early as being off time. Okay. So if you're seeing a number that's at 67%, you're right. That's not great performance. We are aiming for 86% on locals. We're aiming for 90% on regionals, 92% on rail. So when you see the numbers are below those, then that's something that we definitely need to correct. Does that answer your question?
It does. I'm just curious if it's standard industry or not. Is there like a significantly late or not? Because I feel like just as a customer that ultimately, I'm just curious if that's a measurement or not.
It is, and I can share with you documents that would show, what the industry standard is.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Director Sloan, is it a leftover hand?
No, it's not. It's a new hand, also inspired by the previous director's question. And that is, how does a dropped run count in the performance percentage? Is it just zeroed out, or does it become considered late? Or does it just disappear like it does on the signs? Thank you.
Mr. Carter, Mr. Ford, who's on this one?
I can answer that one, Madam Chair. Okay,
Yes, sir.
we do have a standard for delivery of service, and I know if Mr. Fred Worthen is around, he can speak to the number of dropped runs. So we look for a percentage of service provided, and that's typically provided in the quarterly report. So a dropped run is not, we wouldn't want to average that into on-time performance. That's something altogether different, and something that we do definitely want to track, because it speaks to the service delivery and the efficacy of our service delivery.
Thank you.
Good. That works for you, Director Sloan?
Yes, it does.
I'd like to note in this discussion that I am currently at the State Transit Conference, and of interest to Director Sloan's comments earlier, one of the primary discussion items here has been workforce housing, particularly in rural Colorado, where the agencies are in the same boat as everybody. They don't have sufficient drivers, and one of the reasons is there is no affordable housing for people who work in the transit industry to live in. Here in Crested Butte, they're building a 270 unit affordable housing right down from where I am, and it's aimed a lot at transit workers. So it is ongoing. Okay, anybody else have any comments on this particular, on the service change proposals? All right, we're going to go on to the second item, discussion item, after nice discussion on that one, which is the first quarter and second quarter 2023 safety performance review. And I believe that Mr. Dan McLean has got some information for us.
I do, Madam Chair. I will share my screen and review the presentation. Does everybody see the screen? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go through the update of the first and second quarter performance of RTD of 2023. We're going to cover the safety performance data and the safety management system activities that are supporting or working to improve our performance. Injury data is here. This shows a 3-year how many injuries we have per month. And these are first report of injuries, which are required to be filed by the workers' comp. As you see here, 223 of the 388 on-the-job injuries reported are reported for exposure to illicit drugs. And this is much higher than years before. We have recently, they just published a study that done by the University of Washington about the effects of this. What we have seen is that these, most of these are record only, which means they don't go any further. There's no medical attention. There's no lost time. And that's indicated. Again, here's the big slice of the absorption, inhalation, or ingestion classification. Second largest are strain and slip and fall. which historically we've been tracking and working to improvement, and we do have some good news on some of those. One comparison is here's the rate per 100 employees. You see the top bar here is indicates all of those first report of injuries, and it's significantly higher than last year. But if you compare the ones as the OSHA rates, which is basically taking those with medical treatment and lost time, we're just slightly above 2021 and about 1 point over 2022 for the half. And you guys have seen these comparisons before. These are the OSHA national average and the OSHA urban transportation average from the Bureau of Labor Statistics for comparison. Starting in 2023, as part of the bipartisan infrastructure law implementation, we're required to report transit worker assaults. And it's significant because of the definition is not the same definition that they use for illegal assault. They changed the definition that basically says if it impedes transportation and if the operator feels threatened. So they're classified, and these reporting goes to the National Transportation Database, the NTD, and they want them classified whether it was an operator or another transit worker. Was it physical or non-physical? And physical would include getting a drink thrown on or getting spit on. Non-physical would be verbal abuse, and whether it happened on the vehicle or on the property. And so far this year, we've had 100, or so far through Q1 and Q2, we've had 137 assaults that meet that criteria. Again, and we're working to get more accurate, better data, because this is new to everyone, including Joel's team, including the bus team, including the rail team. We'll talk now about commuter rail. The commuter rail accident incident data per line here is, you can see the N line, we've improved for to 2023. These again are comparing like time periods. So the Q1 and Q2 of each of those years. Again, the reportable is the more serious event. The recordable is something we record, required to record. As far as near misses, station overruns, safety rule violations, and injuries through June of this year, again, 45 near misses, 27 station overruns, and you can see those are mostly DTO. RTD is the N line itself that we're operating. And then the injuries, we've had 6, which 2 at DTO and 4 at RTD. Trespasser comparisons for the last 3 years. Again, A line is still the highest, but we've had an uptick. The only one we've had an uptick in is the G line for 2023. And as far as the inspection reports, the FRA inspection reports, we've had quite a bit of inspection activity this year. This is broken down by the N line and the Eagle lines. Violation, defects, and non-defects. These are kind of the hierarchy. The violation is the worst thing, so we get a violation. Defects are something they've noted that we need to correct, and non-defects are something they've noted. And so you can see the increase in non-defects on the N line, and then also the increase in non-defects in the Eagle project. Again, we have had our a good presence of FRA inspectors on the system this year. Light rail for reportable events. And these are the reportable events that are reportable to FTA and the PUC within 2 hours. These are the most serious events. These are events historically that we've reported. As you can see, Q1, or excuse me, 2023, we're down slightly from 2022. Both 2022 and 2023, we had a lot of activity in the first quarter that drove those numbers that way. These reportable hazards were required to be reported starting in July of last year. That's why the quarters don't match up here, but I thought it would be a good comparison. It's 6 months versus 6 months. These are the hazards, the 9 other hazards that also includes near misses on the alignment. You see in the 6 months in 2022, we had 54, and in 6 months of 2023, we're down to 29. Red signal violations continue to go down. There's a lot of good work that's happened. And red signal violations are when we pass an area that the block is occupied or the signal is red, and the train drops out. This is in our territory on light rail where we have ATS, automatic train signal. Bus. This is a comparison of preventable total accidents, preventable and non-preventable. 2023 and 2022 are comparable. We have a little bit of additional events occurring in 2023. Again, I don't know if you guys have, there's quite a difference in the downtown congestion with the new bike lanes and reducing lanes. So there's a lot to navigate. Nothing really has standed out that has picked up or ticked up on the bus side. As far as performing against our targets that we have for the strategic plan and the targets that we have in the PTASP and the SSP, the system safety plan, we have a preventable accident rate. Our target is 1. Through June, we were a 1.39, but I know we've significantly improved that the last 2 months. Again, the good news here on the 5% reduction of lost times due to on-the-job injuries through Q1 and Q2 compared to 2022, 2023, there's a 45% improvement in lost work days. So that's a lot of good work, and that's showing there. The other plans that are goals that are in our plan was a 5% increase reduction of OJIs, and we have a 79% increase. But again, that's that increase would be less than 10% if we took out the report, just the inhalation reports of illicit drugs. We have had a 39% decrease in slip and fall injuries, and that was absolutely the highest injury cause for the last 4 years. And then the miles between road calls, the reliability, the mean distance between failure. We have a target to reduce by 3% or increase the distance by 3%, and we have decreased it through June of this year to 7.7%, down to 28,000 miles. Activity, what are we doing to support this and to get forward? We're continue to further integrate operational risk management. One of the things, the main topics in our newly formed Joint Labor Management Committee is reviewing all the risks and hazards that have been identified in the committees at the garages. This is going fairly well, and we're getting a lot of activity around this. Also integrating operational risk management into our capital programs and our asset management systems that are out there, and including in our asset management bypass system. On commuter rail, July this year, we had to submit the fatigue risk management program plan. We have 3 years to implement it. We're currently assessing the internal assessment review and the risk-based management plan based on the system safety program plan. And next week, on the 20th September, we're going to have a commuter rail emergency drill near the Denver airport. It will actually be on the east side of the Pena Bridge. And it's multi-agency and engaging all of the Denver resources from the airport. So that'll be pretty exciting. Those drills are required every year. DTO is running them this year. We'll be running them next year. And as for the FTA side, we continue our safety assurance activities. We're conducting an event investigation, train the trainer, and that's going on. The training will be completed in September. We're required on the PUC side, on the light rail side, to conduct internal safety reviews. We're getting we're getting better at those. We're getting good. We did have, as you know, we just had the 2024 PTAST approved by the PUC and included the emergency management base plan and the new addition of our joint labor management committee. The PUC does have fall and spring audits. They finished their spring, and they will start the fall audits beginning in October. And also, per the bipartisan infrastructure law, we have additional rulemaking, which includes the PUC is required to do risk-based inspections, and that's just rolling out this last quarter. Part of our activity that we do with the PUC is we manage corrective action plans. Corrective action plans are required when we have events that occur, and then when we have findings on audits or internal safety reviews. We were up to in the 60s with the caps. We have the staff, we have active participation and work with the light rail team, and we'll be able to and capital programs. We've been able to close these. There's a lot of effort around closing these and a lot of activity that has to happen. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. McLean. I think we'll go to questions and comments, and the first hand I see is Director Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. McLean, for that presentation. So I have a few questions and or comments, particularly expressing my alarm at some of the statistics and regarding assaults, 139. And then if you could just also let us know, is that more or less about the same as last year? And you know, there's a lot of data in the presentation. Maybe just sort of present that to us. Let's just start there. First of all, that's just a lot. Our bus drivers and train operators and other staff should not be subject to not one assault. So thank you.
Yeah, this was, if I may, Madam Chair, this is a change in definition that came out in the bipartisan infrastructure law. And it's very much pushed by the FTA that we change that. It does not manage or match legal definitions in most states. This has been a topic that's been discussed at APTA and been put together. FTA put together a guidance video and webinar around how we should report these. We talk about how we report them individually at APTA, but yeah, this is significantly more than we reported last year. Assaults, we may have reported 2 or 3 last year. This is significant because it's now when a bus driver gets yelled at because the individual doesn't have fare, that's recorded as an assault. And again, we do have the definition or the data by, you know, contracted, by fixed route, by light rail and commuter rail. Most of the assaults occur on bus and because they're still an open cab, but it's about half and half between physical and non-physical.
Thank you, sir. And then in terms of the breathing of fumes from illegal drugs, that is also an alarming statistic, and yet our drivers are not a statistic, they're humans. And so given that, what is the procedure in regards to when an operator reports, perhaps, breathing those fumes and maybe they have a headache or what have you. Is there a sort of an arbitrage process to where it's like, well, should they see a doctor? Is there a nurse on site? Is there like, do they call an 800 number? So once that is reported and connected to that, I do see the statistic of there's only, I believe it was help me with this one, the 2 days lost. So in other words, they're feeling bad, they're reporting it, but they're not skipping work. They're not saying, okay, I'm going to take the next day off or something. So it's maybe not that severity, but help me with what is the process there?
Madam Chair and Deborah,
Yes.
because this
Yes,
is, go ahead, Deborah.
if I may, Director Williams, address Director Rosenthal's question as relates to employees being subjected to the adverse impacts. I have several individuals on team that have come on camera because this is an evolutionary process as we go through, recognizing there is no federal guidance. At the outset of the presentation, Mr. McLean made reference to the University of Washington study. And so basically, when we were going through the code of conduct discussion, one thing's for certain, what we put forward to you all, when in fact there is an individual that feels they cannot continue into service, we pull them out of service first and foremost. And we have provided them with the adequate time that they need to take that first day off, and basically they can seek whatever assistance they need. However, I want to ensure that we have the opportunity for our Chief People Officer to speak to this more specifically, as well as the practical matters relative to rail, which has been very prevalent due to the fact that people can sit in the back of a rail consist or on a bus. It's not as likely to occur, but it does. So with that, I'll yield the floor to CPO Pileggi and then to Mr. Jensen to talk about the rail incident. So Ms. Pileggi, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, GM Johnson. Charlene Pileggi, Chief People Officer. I'll speak specifically to the provisions for employees and what is available to them through the negotiated agreement with ATU 1001. I would defer to my colleagues in operations for the specific question as to how is the process done, like, so what do they do? As GM Johnson indicated, the process, if someone is exposed and they are feeling unwell, they make a call. I'll let our operations team speak specifically to that, but there is, depending on what they need, if they need assistance on scene, that assistance is provided to them in place. If they get back to their work location and are not feeling well and don't feel that, or at the time don't feel that they can continue, then that they are able, they will not be, they can then go get the care that they need. They're, if they, as GM Johnson said, the day of, they go home, they're with pay. The next day, if they're feeling well, they definitely come back to work. If the next day they are not feeling well, then there is an additional provision for support for them during that period. Additionally, it is not a prove to us that you were exposed. If an operator conveys that they have been exposed and are unwell, it is no questions asked. Okay, here's what we can do for you to support. So in that instance, we are just focused on ensuring that our employees get the care that they need, and that they are, if they feel they cannot continue operating, that they do not do so. And then I will defer to my colleagues in Bus and Rail, Mr. Jensen or Mr. Worthen, to address any questions on the process.
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may. So good afternoon, I'm Dave Jensen, or good evening. I'm Dave Jensen, the Assistant General Manager of Rail Operations. So a couple of things come to mind on this specific topic. One, as the data indicated, that almost always, or a vast majority of the time, an injury has not occurred or reported. It's a report of a contact. So that's why we have all of the reports. When we look at the data, what we see is the vast majority of the injury reports are not time off reports. So what happens is if an employee, if the train operator on light rail in particular, typically they're notified by a customer. Typically they go back. If there's fumes, if there's an odor, they'll open up the train doors to air it out. They'll have the passengers and the customers deboard the train. It'll sit in place. They report that. A supervisor is sent to the scene. If there's a crime in taking place, the police, RTD police is also notified. And then an assessment is done on the operator. As Ms. Pileggi indicated, that the primary concern is the welfare of our employees and the customers. In no way, shape, or form do we have the operators operate a train until we can confirm that they're in a position where they can do so. So there are times where a train operator will come in contact with something, they've smelt something, they feel fine, they're not impacted by it at all. On their own volition. If that's the case, they're able to operate. If not, we transport them. Everybody gets offered on the job injury, the process of that, so that we can document it, we can get them the care they need, they can get the time off that they need. So I don't know if that's too high level, but we.
No, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for that very detailed information. My final question is, in terms of the statistics, there was one saying that there's a calculation involved, and it says actual hours worked, 2.6 million, I believe it was, for the first quarter of last year, and then it was 2.3 million hours worked for first quarter of this year. And so obviously those numbers affect the final number that gives us an idea of the hours worked. So could somebody maybe address that, and why is it less now, when my understanding is we're ramping up some of our service?
So I can look at it directly. I know there are the hours that I get per month aren't actually per month. They're per however many pay cycles are in that month. So there's some months there's 6, and there's some months there's 4.
Okay.
So there is a little variability there, but I don't think track these. I don't think the hours have went up a lot yet, significantly.
Right. Thank you.
Director Rosenthal, okay, you're done. I see Director Sloan next.
Yes, and I have shared Director Rosenthal's concerns, and I appreciate his bringing them up, and I very much appreciate the responses. Again, the inhalation reports, for one thing, are an emerging problem. But it also sounds as if there are very few overlapping inhalation reports and other reports, such as an ultimate slip and fall or medical claim. So that's reassuring. And I appreciate staff's work on this and respect for the employees. I have just one other question on Director Rosenthal's other issue that had to do with assaults. And it's just a quick question. Does Allied Universal come under the same reporting and recording system?
Yeah, so any contractor that we have, so we record the contractors that would be like First Transit. We record Allied Universal when they're on commuter rail or when they're in the system. If they get assaulted, those assaults are tracked. Yes.
Thank you very much. That's all I have. And again, I appreciate the presentation, the opportunity to drill down a little bit on this.
Thank you, Director Sloan. Director Guzman.
Just a note, I'm looking at the board packet and watching the presentation. I don't know if I just managed to catch it barely, but slide 19 does not match what we were shown on here. And I think it's just probably a typo, but we might need to get that updated information corrected in the public record. Thank you.
Thank you for that observation, sir. Director Room, if you can wait 1 second, sometimes
Oh.
our CEO GM has stuff that's relevant. We don't want to wait too long. So please, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you very kindly. I was made aware that the presentation that Dan utilized is not the correct one. There were some modifications made. The one you have in the packet is the most up-to-date presentation. So just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you,
My
ma'am, for
apologies.
that. That's okay. I think the changes were slight, but we will put out to the public the appropriate information. Director Broom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We spent quite a bit of time enclosing the bus drivers in plexiglass because of the pandemic. Did we take that plexiglass out, or what's the status of that? Are we putting it into the new buses, or is that part of the contract?
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
It's Michael Ford, Chief Operations Officer. We're continuing to install these. What we had before was more around COVID. These are more to protect our operators from assaults and other things that might happen to them while they're out on the road. So we are continuing to install, or the manufacturer is also working to install some of these barriers that are equipped for our various buses. And that's actively going on right now. I don't know all the numbers right now, but that is an active focus right now that we have going on for all of our equipment.
Thank you. I was afraid we probably just dropped that program.
No, we're very diligent on making sure that we are continuing to ensure our operators are safe and providing that kind of protection.
Director Broom? You good? You are on silent?
I'm trying to lower my hand, but I'm
Yeah, I get that. That's why I haven't put mine up, even though I have a couple of questions and comments. So my turn. On September 20th, when we do the drill in the past, we have had members of the disability community volunteer to participate in that drill. And I'm wondering if anybody has asked. I don't need an answer from that right now. It's just a thought that it was a big help in the past. And then my question on all of the statistics, and Mr. McLean always gives us a really concise report with a lot of numbers in it. Hard to get your head around it. But the one that stuck out to me was 553 bus accidents in a half year. And I wonder if anybody can speak to some definition of that.
So I can speak to the accidents are where we investigate, where we have to go out and investigate with our street supervisors. And we've got them all classified in a much more detailed reports to say whether they're side swipes or their rear ends or their hits or what they are. But anytime a bus is in any event, we do a report on it. The side swipes or any dings, anything that happens. There's this, although the number is 500, I think it's not increased that much from last year or previous years. So it's been pretty static at those rates.
So my understanding then is that these are vehicular, and we're not talking about 553 incidents where a bus had any kind of what normally is called an accident that might involve pedestrians. I'm sorry, General Manager Johnson.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to provide further clarification. So when we talk about these accidents, they can be preventable or non-preventable. And so basically, when you're operating a large commercial vehicle and mixed flow use, oftentimes there could be an incident of which the operator has no understanding of because the vehicle could have hit that accident, right? So that's what we mean by side swipes and things of the like. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there was actually a strike with an individual with a pedestrian. It's just the classification process that's utilized as we go forward. So as you can imagine, with the number of revenue service hours, not to diminish the impact of an accident, but this is something that we capture. And so to the point that Mr. McLean was raising, if a car ran up and hit the back of a vehicle, that would still be an accident, even though the operator was not at fault. Usually the most common accidents that occur in this industry, specifically with rubber tire bus fleets, or buses standing in a zone. So basically a car is impatient trying to get away from a bus or what have you, and that generally happens as we go forward. And I'm just speaking from the vantage point of having been in the transportation space. So just wanted to, qualify the statements around what an accident is deemed as from a reportable vantage point. So thank you.
Super, that's exactly what I was after. Okay, not seeing any more hands raised. We're going to move along to other matters. And before I open the floor to anybody else, I'm going to take chair's privilege. It's probably the most I've spoken in a committee meeting in years. I would really like to recognize all the great work that's gone into the launch of RTD's Fare Free for Youth pilot program. It's just been a monumental initiative, years in the making, before it ever got to the public eye. Had to overcome a lot of internal and external obstacles. And specifically, I want to recognize the work of Deborah Johnson, who secured an unusual 12-month waiver from the FTA to allow RTD to forego collecting fares for this important work. Typically only a 6-month waiver is granted, but Ms. Johnson did magic one more time. And I'd really, really like to thank her for the wonderful work. This pilot program is going to fund Fare Free for youth across our district for the next year. I really want to see us continue our work to promote this initiative with an eye toward sustainable revenue stream to make fare free on transit for youth everywhere and forever. As I said, I've been at the state transit meeting for the last couple of days, and I have really been talking, in fact, gave a presentation on this initiative because everybody is interested and in favor. We want to raise up a generation of transit riders for so many reasons. We want it to be a lasting feature of RTD. We want to grow the future of transit riders and contribute to better air in our state and on our planet. So thank you to everybody who worked to make this happen. I see Director Catlin's hand up. I'll yield the floor in this matter or other matters. Director Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to say that I was speaking to somebody this morning, and anecdotally, they mentioned that they were taking, and forgive me, I don't remember which route, but that they had observed usually about 30% of the transit riders in the 8 o'clock hour were youth, but that this week it was more like 80%. So that was just an interesting observation from someone that I was speaking to this morning. And it wasn't in my district. It would just happen to be, it was more in the central business district, but it was still really encouraging that it's working. So I just wanted to comment because you brought it up.
Thank you very much. Are there any other matters that anyone would like to discuss? Okay, crickets. Seeing no hands, please note that we have the next Finance and Planning Committee meeting, which is not us, but it is scheduled for Monday, October 2nd, which is a deviation from our standard meeting cadence. And that is being done so that directors and staff can attend the Denver Regional Council of Governments Awards dinner on Wednesday, October 3rd. And the APTA Transform and Expo conference, which is the week of October 9th. So that committee meeting has been moved, and I do not have the date. I think the next meeting of this committee normally would be October 12th. And I'm not sure if we have moved that as well. But when we, Mr. Kroll, do you know off the top of your head when our next meeting here is?
I believe Taishrei unmuted and she might have something to add.
Taishrei?
Hi, Director Williams. I thought this committee was moved to the second. That might have been a typo in the script for the Dr.
Okay.
Cog Award. So this meeting should have been moved to the second because of APTA is also the 11th. So we can't have a meeting that week.
Okay, so we'll try that over again. This next committee meeting will be October 2nd. I don't know when the next Planning and Finance Committee meeting is, but the reason that that is happening is because there's a lot of other stuff going on. So we will see you here again at the same time in the same location
And
on
Deborah
October
has her
2nd.
hand raised.
Oh, Director Johnson, you can be a director for a while.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I was raising my hand because I was going to say it was October 2nd. We moved it to Monday for Dr. Cog. And so Taishrei clarified it and I just didn't put my hand down. Thank you.
Okay, well, that was a nice casual wrap up here. Everybody's got a smile on their face. Seeing no other discussion, this meeting will be adjourned at 6:31. Thank you all for your participation and good evening.